I'll start, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm Jane Mullins, and I was just wondering if you could expand on this concept of being a passionate conservative, especially as a young person, and attracting other people to be passionate conservatives that combine mind and heart and then share that the message is really compassionate for other people.
Yeah, I think, knowing your stuff is important. I grew up with all liberals. I went to college with mostly liberals. I moved to Washington. There was a brief stint where I was in a small town in North Carolina where I was like not completely outnumbered. But as a result, I had to learn my stuff. I had to get ready, not necessarily to go toe-to-toe in a sort of cable news style debate. That's not going to win people over, like, if you're out having a beer. But in a way that I could say, look, I mean, one of the ways that I've found most persuasive, particularly with somebody who's already a liberal or somebody who's a swing voter who just has this idea that, like, aren't you just out to get people, is to honestly say calmly, look, people, honest people, good people, believe something different, and here's why. And let me explain how it benefits normal folks, how it is a compassionate point of view, and I think taking that approach, specifically among small groups of friends, is probably the best way to reach people. And a lot of times, like I say, especially when I talk to young women or talk about women voters, and it goes for young people as well, you don't have to necessarily swing them all the way to committed conservative with you. What you want to do is hone in on some issues that they agree with you. You start chipping away at that conventional wisdom. If they start agreeing with you on one issue, then they're going to come with you some of the rest of the way later. I have my best friend from home who is now with the Commerce Department. She believes in free trade. That was the Achilles heel with her. No, but she's not an activist conservative, but she is not in the same place she was before because she had this different point of view on that. And so I think tapping into that and not being like, why don't you agree with me on every single issue ever? That's not going to help you as much. Because with young people, especially with our peers, it's just not going to happen that often. So I like to play it soft. But when they attack you, feel free to come back.
Hi, thank you for coming in to speak with us today. My name is Pamela Meyer-Hofer. I go to Xavier University in Cincinnati, Ohio. You mentioned that during one of your first positions you had to go to those meetings and take notes, and it became kind of a game changer for you.
Right.
What would be your advice? I mean, that kind of altered your career path a little bit. When did you figure out, or have you figured out what you want to do in the long run, and what would be your advice to college students and interns who are still figuring it out?
I like have you figured it out because that is totally where I am. I didn't plan to do any of this, which is, I think, actually part of why I ended up where I am, and I'm excited about it. I love where I am. But if you had asked me when I was in college or just getting out what I wanted to do, this would not have been even in the realm of possibility. Not because I didn't want to do it, but it would never have occurred to me to like do radio or TV. I had always been a writer. And then I found out that I liked it. I think being open to those possibilities was one of the things that helped me. So somebody, because I didn't have a specific path, somebody comes and says, hey, do you want to try hosting a radio show? And I'm like, oh, well, I'll try that. I'll try TV. When I got asked the first time, like, sure, I might crash and burn, but I'll try TV. And so giving those things a shot and not being afraid to do that helped. And that goes along with what I was saying about being a young person, having these new marketable skills and technology, and not being afraid to embrace that and say, like, maybe you're hosting, maybe you're hosting a web show for whatever group you're working for. Maybe you're handling the Twitter feed. But don't be afraid to try those new things, take those new tools in different directions. And I think that's what served me well. I happened to come up in a time where all of a sudden being a commentator was sort of a job in itself, like being a personality of sorts and having a specific point of view and making it a little more fun was something that happened to serve me well with the time that I came up in. It wouldn't have served me well a couple of years ago. But I think the opportunities are multiplying as opposed to contracting as far as different things that you can do. Now, as far as the economy goes, I do not envy you guys going out there right now. So I want to stipulate that, like, my situation was different because things were looking pretty good. But I think in activism, there's lots of places to look on the state level, on the federal level. And so you do have some outlets. But don't be afraid to, like, don't be like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a, whatever it is in a senator's office, and not veer from that. I think there's plenty of opportunities to do other stuff, and you might miss out on cool things.
Hi, my name is Francesca Hart. I'm from Emory University, and I'm interning at the College Republican National Committee.
Cool.
I had a question about radio and television. I was just wondering what internships and what skill sets you think are would best position someone in college to possibly get those jobs once we enter the workforce.
Well, it's always good to start with something. I think generally for radio, it's call screener and booker. And when you get those jobs, you can get them on very small radio shows, whatever it is, but the skills are the same. They translate to every level. And just being able to sort of handle that kind of thing, the people skills, and just deciding what is a good call and what's a bad call. I mean, those skills are the same as far as you go, but you have to start learning them. As far as TV goes, I think booking and producing for a show. They also have I think they have at all the networks, and I'm sure at other places as well. I'm speaking from a national level because that's what I know. They have guest greeters, which is where most people start out. And then I have found, I meant to mention this, I have found the best way to get into radio or TV as some kind of commentator, and this is something that I might have done differently if I had known before, is to get a specialty. I'm a generalist that just happened by chance because I was a newspaper reporter, and then I came here and I just covered everything. Why is Paul Ryan on the guy you go to talk to about budget issues? Because he knows them better than anyone. He made that his wheelhouse. And so finding that thing for yourself will get you into those areas, sort of, coming around the backside, sort of, will get you into those areas because people will come to you because you know something better than other people do. And that's just getting a specialty, I think, is a great tip in general for Washington, because I might have done things differently had I seen backwards. But it's a really powerful way to just make yourself an authority. So.
I'm Mary Katharine. My name is Laurel. I'm a Luce Policy Institute intern, and I go to Cornell University. I was wondering if you could weigh in with your opinion on the question, can women have it all?
I think that you do have to make some choices. I will use my own life as an example. I realized about a year ago that, in fact, this comes with the idea of not exactly knowing what you want. I realized about a year ago that part of what I wanted was to have flexibility to eventually have kids and be home with them some of the time, at least some of the time. And I still wanted to have an impact. And I am blessed that my career as a blogger or commentator, TV and all this stuff has given me a way to sort of find that path. But I'm sure that if I went 80 hours a week, gung-ho for the next 10 years, I would be in a different position than the one I'm going to be in because I've made that decision. Now, to me, that's still having it all. I'm more than happy with the situation that I have created for myself. It ended up being part of my goal. So when it comes to having it all, it does not necessarily mean to me, monetarily and ladder-wise, I must be at the very, very pinnacle, and I must also have 3 kids and be home with them sometimes. I understand that there are trade-offs that we make. But I think being honest with yourself about what you want to be it all is the best thing you can do for yourself. And, my mom worked probably 60 hours a week and had 3 kids and did an incredible job. And we never thought twice about it. Never had any doubt about how she felt about us. My grandmother was in the military and, did 1,000 things and had 3 kids and back when that was not as easy. So I've been inspired by them, and I made slightly different choices, and I'll end up in a different place. But I think to my grandmother, to my mom, and to me, they both count as it all. So I don't buy the notion that it all means this very specific thing, and that if we don't all get there, then we've failed. No. You make trade-offs, and you make yourself happy.
Hi, my name is Ashley, and I was wondering, what books do you recommend to students?
Oh, books. Well, you can start off with the Federalist Papers, of course. I know people have their very specific opinions about Ayn Rand. I think that she's just a fun read, and if you are a conservative, it's just it's a blast to read her. And I know everybody says Atlas Shrugged. I would say there's a book called We the Living that she did that's semi-autobiographical about her growing up in the Soviet Union, which is really sort of a raw picture of how bad that ideology can get. And so I kind of always liked that one. It's a little bit more soft than your normal Ayn Rand kind of thing. But yeah, I love economists, so that's the one thing. If I had to go back to school, if someone made me go back to school, I would probably go back for economics. So I love like the more simply written things like Bastiat's stuff and Hayek's Road to Serfdom. So I like that kind of stuff just because it gets you ready to do battle when you have to. But I also like just silly books as well. And don't be afraid to read those too, because that's the one thing. Taking a vacation from this intellectually and physically occasionally is really good for you.
My name's Katharine. Let me ask you, where do you get your news? What are the top sources of news for you, and what recommendations do you have for students to where should they go to get really good news? I will say the way I get news is I use my Twitter account to get almost all the news I get. I think for many people, especially young people, that's a cool way to do it. I find that because I use my Twitter stream, so I set up a very specific group of people that I follow for breaking news, and it's built over several years, and it's probably really large at this point. But the point being, I find that I'm a good 20-25 minutes ahead of people on breaking news because I'm on Twitter. Now I always follow that up and check with other sources. I don't just take it from Twitter, but that is my favorite way to follow news. And I remember it feels the same as the shift when I was in newspapers. I was the only person reading blogs in the newsroom, and I felt like I was ahead of everyone there. And then now we have Twitter, which I think can serve the same purpose. So you should always remember that it can be fast and wrong, so you need to check. But it is, if you're a news junkie, that is my favorite thing to do. And then I also, of course, I love Wall Street Journal, Fox News, obviously. I like to watch my own clips. And I'm just kidding. Fox News and hotair.com I must give a plug to because I work there now, but it really is a great blog. And again, all the economists guys, like the George Mason University economists, have their own blog. Megan McArdle, I will recommend. She's a really, really smart libertarian woman who works at Newsweek now. I love reading her. And aside from news, I just really like reading that more analytical, wonky stuff. So I enjoy The Economist and that kind of thing. Everybody done? Oh, and I do want to, since we're on C-SPAN, I would like to give a shout out to the C-SPAN Video Library, which is possibly the coolest, nerdiest website on the planet, and all of you guys will love it. You can go back to like 2000 and watch old Mitt Romney debates. What could be better? It is a really cool, useful tool, and if you guys are going to be working in politics and activism, great tool to have at your disposal. I use it all the time. Alrighty.